Hi, Skye. This is Nicole.
Hiya.
Hi. Nice to meet you. Thank you so much for agreeing to this. I guess the easiest place to start is tell me a little bit about the A+ content you've created so far, if you've made it for more than one title, and what your kind of idea behind the information in that content.
I do write under several pen names. I do have Isla Winter. And I started with that pen name because it's children's books. And so I already had a lot of images and graphics for that one, and I didn't have to start from scratch like I did for the adult books. And so that was quite fun. For one of my books, for the little ghost, I used one template where you have 3 little images with some extra text. And so I introduced 3 of the characters. I had one image of each character, and then had the wise owl knows everything, and the little bat likes to fly around the castle. And so that way I introduce children to the book, or parents really, introduce them to the book and give them an idea of the style as well of the images. So I think quite helpful for them to look inside without using the look in function, especially on a phone. That's always different. So it gives them an idea of what's inside. I've used the comparison feature quite a bit, especially for series. So for example, for one of my adult series, which is sci-fi romance, the books in the series have different pairings. So there's one reverse harem, one is MF, one is menage. So I've had those. I think I had the length novella. I think theme, yeah, because one is pirates, one is Christmas, and one was just generic alien romance. But that way it gives people an idea of what the series is about or which book they might prefer. And the nice thing with A+ is that you can assign one bit of content to several books. So I was able to assign that one to all books in the series and didn't have to do a new one for every single one, which is especially handy if you have a series with 10 books or something and don't want to start from scratch every single time.
Definitely. How did you go about designing it? I've heard of several people using things like Canva and things like that. I don't know if you talked about having the graphics for the children's book already. So did you have to create separate graphics? How did you build it?
Both. I used Canva for some, especially there's one where you have those really narrow images, which doesn't fit a book cover. It's easiest to add some white space above and below to have the book cover still in the right dimensions. Canva is great for getting the dimensions because they are quite specific. So usually, even if I already have graphics, I usually have to adjust them slightly to fit. I did have some transparent book cover image, so like 3D mock-ups that I used, which I already had created in other software, which again is quite nice to highlight different formats of a book. So I had audiobook, hardcover, paperback, and so people can see that in one go without having to read, because people don't like reading sometimes.
It's always ironic, isn't it? Buying books and they don't like to read.
It's very ironic how people don't read the descriptions. Having images is very helpful to give them an idea.
So how long did it take for you to create all of that?
I did it in batches because of that. The first ones took the longest, of course, because it was still finding your way around, and I experimented with different blocks because there's some which are really narrow and they don't really do much for books because you'd have to squeeze all the content in it. So it took a while. I was probably half an hour for the first at the very least. But now that I've done it a couple of times, I know which blocks I like using, and I know which of my existing graphics might fit without me having to play around too much. And so now it's a much quicker thing. But yeah, it takes some time to get your head around it.
Definitely. And then mixed reactions as to how long it takes to get it approved by Amazon. I don't know how long yours has generally taken.
Yeah, that's really weird. I've had some approved within 3 seconds.
Oh,
So
wow.
nobody actually looked at those. I've had others which took about a week. I had a discussion with a friend just a few days ago for adult books, and we both used sexy in the text somewhere, and both of them weren't approved yet. And because I had a book pub coming up, I really wanted that live before the book pub. So I switched sexy to hunky and it was approved within seconds. So
Wow.
They must have some algorithms that check for certain words and then have them manually checked. So that now goes on my list as well. But I was planning in the next few days to, for one series, have exactly the same text except for 1 or 2 words, and just experiment with that and see which words are on the ban list, probably.
It's interesting. They've got a very long list, it seems, already in their content
Yeah.
guidelines. I'll be interested to hear what you find out.
Yeah. I've had 2 rejected. One was because I said audiobook coming soon, and they didn't like that, which makes sense. So I had to remove that. And one other was a kid's book where there was a tiny bit of text in one image, and apparently that was too small to be read. It was too small, but yeah.
When they reject content, do you have to redesign it, or are you able to just go in and edit the file a little bit? Or
you can edit the one. That's the problem. They tell you. They're pretty good actually at that compared to usual Amazon things where they don't always tell you what's the actual issue. So they do tell you in that block you need to remove the text or whatever. So, and that's a pretty quick change. And when I did remove the audiobook thing, it was approved within a few minutes. So I was quite impressed by that.
Definitely. I've heard of some fast times, but definitely not that quick.
Yeah, it's weird. You'd think that especially at the beginning, they have a thing where every single bit of content is approved by a person, but apparently it isn't. So,
yeah.
Curious.
Have you noticed it? I don't know how long these have been up, so take it with a grain of salt. Have you noticed it affecting reader interest or sales at all?
I did my first one right when it came out at the end of July, and that was 2 kids' books, again, because those were easiest. And then I did the adult ones at some point mid-August, so those haven't been up for as long. One of the kids' books has had a big increase in sales, and I didn't do anything else to it. It's the only thing really that I changed that I did, so I'm assuming it's due to A+. That's the one where I highlighted the characters inside the book, and I highlighted which formats it's available in, and added a bit of blurb, a different blurb from the one above. And yeah, I think it's hard to say, but I would probably say they almost doubled the sales.
Wow.
Which is crazy. The book wasn't selling badly before, so it's one of my better selling ones anyway. But yeah, it's the only thing I can explain why it's suddenly increasing.
Wow.
I've not seen anyone talk about it, or I've not seen any blog posts or anything. So, but the other book didn't see an increase. It just pretty much stayed the same. So yeah, now it's the question, like, how can I replicate that effect for everything else, which is harder if you already don't get as much traffic on a book. I think it'll be easier if you already get a lot of people going on that book page and then seeing the content. It doesn't help if nobody ever looks at your book.
Right.
Because, yeah. So I think it's most effective for books that already sell, and you might give them a little boost. For people who are on the fence, should I buy this, should I not buy it? And then that, if they see more content, they might press that click button. But yeah, so I think going forward, I still haven't done it for all my books because I have so many, but I think I'm going to prioritize the ones that already sell and then work my way through the list to get to the ones that only have occasional sales.
So just in general, what do you like and or dislike about A+?
I like that we have the option of it. Looks so much more professional to have that extra content, especially if you're just used to browsing Amazon, and all the big publishers have that. So it's nice that we have access to it. So I'm quite grateful for that, actually. And I do like that there's lots of different options, that we have all those different blocks and we can customize them quite a bit. What I don't like is, well, that they don't really tell you things like avoid certain words or be careful not to do that. They do have a nice list of rules, but apparently they didn't include everything. And there's not much transparency about how they approve things, how long it can take. Plus point is that you can duplicate content across countries. So if you create content for in the US, for example, you can then, once it's approved, duplicate that in the UK, Canada, etc. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel, which is so handy.
Definitely. Yeah, I saw that feature, and yeah, that was nice.
Yes, I guess they could have done it differently in having the same content across languages instead of marketplaces, but this is almost as good. I have some German translations, and it says that the Netherlands also have German content, but at the moment you can't transfer it from Germany to the Netherlands, but I assume that might be something that happens in the future, but that's not really like a big thing for most people.
You never know. Got authors in all sorts of languages, so
yeah, exactly. But yeah, I think it's mostly positive. Okay, one negative thing is that if you look at it in the Amazon app or on a mobile, the A+ content is shown before the actual blurb. If you only put pretty images in your A+, people might not scroll all the way down to the blurb. And if the image doesn't attract them, then you've lost them. So I'm now, since finding that out, I'm now trying to put some more text into the A+ content, putting in a blurb or a quote from the book, something to read, something that immediately tells them what the book is about without scrolling down to the blurb. I wish it was the other way around, to first have the blurb and then the extra content like it is in a browser. Yeah, that's a bit strange, but it's good to know. Since finding that out, I've adjusted some of my content, and that's something that's really nice. You can adjust it really quickly. You can change things, and then again, it's approved fairly fast. You're not stuck with something if you don't like it, or if you find out that you made a mistake.
You said that's in the app, and was it mobile?
I think it's, if you browse it on a mobile, yeah, it's the same. Yeah, it's just switched around for some reason.
I had not noticed that yet.
I hadn't either until someone pointed it out in the Wide for the Wind group, and I was like, ah.
Do you think that the A+ content feature is something that's going to stick around? Is it more of a novelty right now, or do you think that it actually will become part of the marketing process for a lot of books?
I think at the moment, most people are just experimenting and haven't had the time to look at it. But because all the trad books, or not all, but many trad books have it, and other Amazon articles, so if you as an author just browse Amazon, buy random things, you almost always have that. So I think every time authors see that, they'll be reminded that it exists, and eventually I think most authors will do something with it, especially if it increases sales. So I think once people have had the experience like I had with one of mine, that the sales shot up, then yeah, it suddenly becomes that tool to use. And the nice thing is that, yeah, I think it is going to stick around, and so you don't have to do it immediately. It's one of those things to add to your to-do list for when you want to procrastinate or have a quiet moment in between releases. Or so yeah, it's not something that I would put at the top of my marketing list for books, especially because it can't be used for pre-orders. That's, I guess, another negative there. So you can only add it once a book is released, which is quite sad. It would be nice to get more pre-orders, to tell them more in advance, especially if they don't have the look inside feature yet for the book, but everything.
And then do you think it's going to become an expectation with certain genres in particular? Do you think it's going to be kind of in general, all books are expected to have something like this?
From an Amazon perspective or reader perspective?
Either, honestly.
I don't think Amazon is going to require it, but I think especially as a children's book author, I think it's a great thing, and many children's books already have it. So I think that's where it will really make a difference. For adult books where it's all about text, it's a nice addition, but I don't think it's like completely necessary. I think for nonfiction, it can be really helpful as well, giving people more information of what's inside, maybe some graphics that are in there. And so for those, I think it's a great tool. Maybe readers will come to expect it eventually. At the moment, many probably haven't noticed yet. They aren't always aware of the kind of indie versus trad. So for them, they might not realize that because it doesn't have that content. It's an indie author who didn't have access to that until now. I think it is something that lots of people will use, but it isn't the kind of big thing that will change everything.
Do you have any tips for authors, anything that you've noticed works well as something to feature in A+ content? I've seen a lot of people who've used it for like book taglines, and then I've seen Amazon saying, oh, you can use it for a second author bio and things like that.
Yeah, I think a lot of people I've seen, especially in romance, have the 3 images above each other that then create one image with a tagline. Which is really pretty, but I personally have stopped doing that now because of the whole blurb issue on mobile, because it's very pretty to look at that picture of a character, but yeah, you want them to know more about the book. Unless the tagline says everything about a book, sometimes people manage to do that and have that brilliant, amazing tagline that makes you immediately want to buy the book. If you have that, use it. But I think it's better to give people more information about what's in the book, giving them like the things that are special about it, something about the characters, something about maybe the setting is special, a second author bio, something about the series to encourage them to look at the other books in the series. or related books that aren't in a series, which you can't link. But if you have, for example, from romance, sorry, all my examples like what I write. So if you have a werewolf series, you might want them to know about your bear shifter series and your whatever cat shifter series, which aren't linked on Amazon, but that way you can point people in that direction. So even if they look at your site now and think, oh, I don't like werewolves, but oh, cat shifters, I really want them, they might be moved to that and you don't lose that reader. So I think you can do a lot with that, not specific just about the book, but about the series, about your other books. Yeah, I guess you could even, no, you can't. I was thinking of doing it for co-authors book or having an anthology and having books by the anthology authors, but you can only add content that is your own. So you can only include your own book covers and not those of other people. Because in a shared universe at the moment, it would have been nice to include all the covers from the other authors participating, but we can't do that, sadly.
That's another one that I hadn't paid attention to or read yet.
Yeah, that only came up for me last week and I was thinking, oh, that's a great idea. And then I looked up.
I guess tangentially related to that, are there any things you'd like to see added or changed about the A+ content in the future? Features that you're thinking, oh, that would be great, but we don't quite have yet?
Being able to add links, because at the moment you can only add links in the comparison feature. So if I compare several of my books, people can actually click on that book cover and it leads them to the other book. But in many of the normal graphics, you can't add links. So if I add a book, a picture of a hardcover, I'd quite like people to be able to click on that and then go to the hardcover page. I get why they don't want us to add external links, but it would be, if I could put something on my Christmas wish list, that would be it. As well as other people's book covers, of course, with their permission. I guess there would have to be some kind of system that you don't, randomly link to people who you have no affiliation with. So I guess that's probably very unlikely that they'll ever do that. And then putting the blurb about the A+ content in mobile and the app.
I was gonna say, I almost wonder if that's supposed to happen, if that's one of those that's just a glitch, or if Amazon that.
I never looked at it or never paid attention to it before we were able to do it, if it was the same for like people who already had access to it beforehand. So no idea. But yeah, that's definitely on the wish list. Or being able to even have the option of choosing, should it be above the blurb or below? Because people might have a preference of where it should show. It's a great tool. And I think, we should all play around with it and see how it works and then share our findings, because things like the whole sexy, hot, hunky, I wouldn't have found that out without talking to some other author who had the same issue. So sharing information always helps.
For sure. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Oh, thanks for the invite.
All right. And it was lovely getting a chance to talk to you, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Same to you.
Wonderful to meet you.
Same. Bye.
Bye.